They have made it very clear that this is only the first meeting. The envoys of the United States and Russia have spoken in Saudi Arabia about the future of Ukraine. Neither the Zelensky government nor the European Union was invited. They assure that they will be able to participate in the talks, but there does not seem to be a prominent role for them in that roadmap. There are two delegations at the highest level. For America, three men who are of Donald Trump's utmost confidence. There is his head of diplomacy, the National Security Advisor, and also the Special Envoy for the Middle East, the businessman, who discussed the future of Gaza with Netanyahu. On the other side of the table, on the Russian side, the powerful Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, and Putin's advisor for international affairs. The two sides have agreed at this meeting to normalize diplomatic relations and start the process to seek a lasting peace in Ukraine. There she is in Riyadh, the special envoy of Spanish radio television, Almudena Riza. If the meeting has been long, 4.5 hours, which seems to be a sign that strategic and important issues have been discussed. The first balance of the two parties is positive. It was the first face-to-face dialogue between the heads of the two countries' diplomacies since before the invasion of Ukraine, and it seems that the ice has been broken and the foundations for a more fluid relationship have been laid. Both sides have agreed to start the process to end the war in Ukraine, a country that has not yet been invited to dialogue, although a meeting with Zelensky is not ruled out, if necessary, Michel Kremlin. And from Washington, there is also a positive assessment of the meeting. They talk about the creation of a consultation mechanism to address the most conflicting issues of the bilateral relationship. At the moment, of course, both sides say there is no date in sight for a meeting between Putin and Trump.
Serious faces and without looking at each other is the image that both delegations have given. It was the first time in 3 years that the heads of diplomacy of the United States and Russia have met. 4.5 hours in which both delegations have agreed to move towards the normalization of diplomatic relations between the two countries and work on a plan to end the war in Ukraine. Now it's time to appoint high-level teams that will start negotiating a lasting agreement, Rubio says. It is appreciated from Russia that the two delegations have begun to listen to each other. It is advantageous for everyone to have good relations, says Kirill Dmitriev, a member of the Russian delegation. From Ankara, Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that he wants the war to end, but has asked for security guarantees from the United States, the European Union and Turkey, because he says that this country has already been a mediator with Russia in the past. At the moment, there is no date for the meeting between Trump and Putin that will end the conflict, in which 600,000 have already died, Russians and almost 500,000 Ukrainians.
This is not the first time that we have tried to put an end to this war. Since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 and the pro-Russian rebels took over the Donbas, there have been several attempts, all failed. Donald Trump, we remember, said in the campaign that he would end this conflict in 24 hours, and his way to achieve it. Christina Alio, we are seeing, is to negotiate directly with Moscow. Yes, sitting at that negotiating table with Russia, and only with Russia, is a radical departure from Washington's policy over the past 3 years. So, the one who was in the White House was Biden, and what he was trying to do was isolate Putin and make a common front with the NATO allies, together with whom he repeated that mantra of nothing about Ukraine so many times. Without Ukraine, Donald Trump, on the other hand, says that none of this has served to end the war. He promised in the campaign to put an end to long and expensive conflicts, in which the United States is dispersing money in the form of weapons or economic aid. And in the case of Ukraine, he started by calling Putin last week. This raises fears that the two will forge an agreement unfavorable to Ukraine. Here at the White House, it is still unclear what role Zelensky is going to play in all this. What they are saying is that Trump wants to end the war as soon as possible. Now that the weather conditions have frozen any advance on the front to 4,000 kilometers away from the United States and Russia, they decide the future of Ukraine without Ukraine.
The problem of Ukraine is a weak part of the conversation, because in the end it depends to a large extent on the money and weapons of the West and especially of the United States and the European Union. Therefore, you can play that card to Trump, but users also have their own agenda, and a bad peace or a bad agreement can be seen internally as a betrayal or as a matter of not being allowed.
Here, we have the so-called Normandy Quartet posing a decade ago. History has confirmed to us that this was the picture of a bad agreement, the Minsk Protocol.
The agreements established a total disarmament of the Donetsk and Luhansk militias, and, after that disarmament, they were already going to allow there to be autonomy in those territories. The thing is that there was no such disarmament, and of course, as there was no such disarmament, Ukraine did not allow autonomy.
Peace never returned to Donbas. Experts recall that there were other interests at stake.
Here what we have received from the years after is statements from, for example, Angela Merkel or François say, that basically the objectives of the Minsk agreements was to allow Ukraine time to rearm and remit.
But Russia made better use of the time.
What has happened to Europe is that it has never been able to establish what it wanted in Ukraine beyond a total victory, which obviously seems unreal.
Trump assures that he does have it, and is not willing to let anyone spoil it for him.